My son's real father thought he could just waltz back into our lives after 21 years, right when my boy inherited $83 million. He believed he could erase everything I'd done, claim the fortune, and take my son away. But what he didn't know was that I would fight back with everything I had, and it would cost him more than he ever imagined. Before you continue, hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready because this is one of the most shocking, satisfying revenge stories you'll hear today. For 21 years, I was the only father my son ever knew. I adopted him when he was just a baby, abandoned, alone, and in desperate need of a family. My wife and I couldn't have children of our own, so when we first held him, it felt like fate had finally given us a chance at happiness. We named him Ethan, and from that moment, he was our world. Ethan was a bright, curious kid who always asked questions and wanted to help. I taught him how to ride a bike, how to fix a leaky faucet, and how to stand up for himself when the world tried to knock him down. We weren't rich, but we gave him everything we could: love, stability, and a home that felt safe. My wife, Sarah, poured her heart into raising him, and together, we built a life that felt real. But there was always a shadow in the background, a sealed envelope from the adoption agency, a name we weren't allowed to know. Ethan would sometimes ask about his real parents, and I'd tell him the truth. "We don't know who they are, but we love you as our own." He'd nod, but I could see the questions in his eyes. As Ethan grew older, he became more independent, but our bond never faded. We celebrated every birthday, every graduation, every small victory. I was proud of the man he was becoming. But on the eve of his 21st birthday, something changed. He received an official heavy letter, stamped with a law firm's seal. He didn't open it right away, but I could see the worry in his face. That night, as we sat around the dinner table, I felt a chill in the air. Something was coming, something that would shatter the trust we'd built and test the very meaning of family. The next morning, Ethan opened the letter. His hands shook as he read the words, his eyes darting back and forth in disbelief. "Dad, I think my real father is alive, and he wants to meet me." My heart dropped. The letter explained that Ethan's biological father, a man named Victor Langley, had been searching for him for years. And now, on his 21st birthday, Victor was ready to step back into his life with a lawyer in tow. But that wasn't all. The letter revealed that Ethan's birth father was a multi-millionaire oil tycoon, and Ethan was the sole heir to an $83 million inheritance. The money was being held in trust until Ethan turned 21, and Victor was demanding a reunion, claiming he wanted to make up for lost time. I felt blindsided. For 2 decades, I'd been the one to patch Ethan's scraped knees, to teach him right from wrong, to sit up with him through fevers and heartbreaks. Now this stranger wanted to swoop in and claim everything. My son, our memories, and a fortune that could change our lives forever. Sarah tried to stay calm, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "What if he tries to take Ethan away?" she whispered. I didn't have an answer. The next day, Victor arrived at our door dressed in a tailored suit, exuding confidence and entitlement. He barely looked at me as he embraced Ethan, tears streaming down his face. "I've missed you every day," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. But something about his performance felt off, too rehearsed, too perfect. Victor wasted no time. He invited Ethan to his mansion, introduced him to lawyers, and started planting seeds of doubt. "You deserve more than this small-town life," he'd say. "You're meant for greatness." Ethan was torn, caught between loyalty to the family who raised him and the allure of a father he'd never known. But little did Victor know, I wasn't going to stay broken for long. The days that followed were a blur of tension and uncertainty. Ethan spent more and more time with Victor, swept up in a world of luxury cars, private jets, and promises of a life he'd never imagined. I watched as my son slipped further away, his laughter fading, his eyes clouded with confusion. Sarah tried to reach him, but every conversation ended in arguments. "You don't understand, Mom. He's my real dad. He wants to make things right." I wanted to believe Victor's intentions were pure, but every instinct screamed that something was wrong. I started digging, calling the adoption agency, searching public records, and even hiring a private investigator. What I found made my blood run cold. Victor wasn't just after a reunion. He was in control. The inheritance was structured so that Ethan would need a guardian to access the full amount until he turned 25. Victor was petitioning the court to become that guardian. claiming that Ethan was emotionally unprepared to handle such a fortune. If he succeeded, he'd have access to every dollar and to my son's future. That was my breaking point. I refused to let a toxic relationship destroy everything we'd built. I confronted Victor, demanding that they back off. He laughed in my face. "You're just the stand-in. The state paid you to babysit my son. Now the real father is here." His words cut deeper than any knife. But I wasn't going to let him win. I gathered every document, every photo, every memory that proved I was Ethan's true father in every way that mattered. I met with lawyers, built a case, and prepared for the fight of my life. And that's when I discovered the perfect way to ruin him. I knew I couldn't outspend Victor, but I could outsmart him. I started documenting everything. His manipulative conversations, the pressure he put on Ethan, and the way he tried to isolate my son from us. I encouraged Ethan to keep a journal, to write down his feelings and experiences. Slowly, I began to see cracks in Victor's facade. I reached out to former employees, business partners, and even Victor's ex-wife. The stories they told painted a picture of a man obsessed with power and control, a man who saw people as assets, not family. I compiled evidence of his past betrayals, his shady business deals, and his history of emotional abuse. I worked with my lawyer to build a case that would expose Victor for who he truly was. Meanwhile, I focused on Ethan. I reminded him of the life we'd built, the values we'd taught him, and the love that had carried us through every hardship. I didn't beg or plead. I simply showed him the truth. Family isn't about blood, I told him. It's about who stands by you when the world falls apart. The court date approached, and tension reached its peak. Victor was confident, smug, and certain he'd win, but I had one last card to play, a secret Victor never saw coming. I'd discovered a clause in the inheritance trust. If Victor was found to be acting in his own interest, not Ethan's, he'd be permanently barred from any guardianship or financial control. I presented my evidence in court. Emails, recordings, and testimonies. The judge listened, stone-faced, as Victor's lies unraveled. Ethan sat beside me, his hand trembling in mine. The moment of truth was coming. But when the day finally came, everything changed. The courtroom was silent as the judge delivered the verdict. "Mr. Langley, it is clear you have acted in your own interest, not your son's. You are hereby denied all guardianship rights and access to the inheritance." "Ethan, your adoptive parents are recognized as your true legal guardians until you turn 25. Victor's face twisted in shock and rage. For the first time, he was powerless. Ethan turned to me, tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Dad, for everything." In that moment, every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt was worth it. Justice was served not just for me, but for every child who's ever been caught in the crossfire of family drama and betrayal. Victor's reputation was ruined. The evidence of his toxic relationships and business betrayals spread quickly, and he lost his company, his fortune, and the respect of everyone who once feared him. Karma had finally caught up. Meanwhile, Ethan flourished. He finished college, started a foundation for kids in foster care, and used his inheritance to help others escape toxic family conflicts. Our family grew stronger, bound not by blood, but by love and loyalty. Looking back, I realized that revenge stories aren't just about payback. They're about justice, healing, and proving that real family is chosen, not inherited. The satisfaction of seeing karma delivered, of watching a villain fall, is nothing compared to the joy of seeing someone you love rise above betrayal. So, tell me, do you think this revenge was fair, or did Victor deserve even worse? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you love emotional storytelling, pro-revenge, and satisfying stories of justice served, make sure to subscribe for more. Because in the end, the best revenge is living well and never letting anyone steal your family's happiness.